The House Committee on Families, Children, and Seniors will now come to order. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Chair Young.
Present.
Representatives Coffia.
Present.
Glanville.
Present.
Arbit.
Here.
Edwards.
Here.
McDonald.
Present.
Wozniak.
Here.
Fox. Johnson.
Here.
Thompson. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Excellent. Now I need to take a motion to approve the minutes from the May 16th meeting. Representative Arbit, motion to approve the minutes. All right, so today is an exciting day. I'm so excited. I'm gonna try to keep myself together. I'm gonna try to be composed, everybody. But this has been a day, long time coming, and so today we'll be hearing testimony only on a package of bills, a 3-bill package that are designed to improve the education received by youth in our foster care system. And with that, committee, we will now go at ease of the chair.
The Committee on Families, Children, and Seniors will now come back to order. Chair Young and Representative Edwards, thank you so much for bringing this critical legislation forward. The two of you now have the floor to speak to your bills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me the time to testify on this crucial package of bills. Almost 1 year ago, 11 months to be more precise, a truly disturbing news report caught my attention. In that report, it detailed how Michigan's foster care system had utterly failed to provide the children in the system with a quality education. Kids and teens took classes, had teachers, worked on computers, they did their homework, and for months while they resided in a foster care facility, we were shocked to find something happened. They did all these things believing that this work would lead them to a diploma that they could use to get into college, to a trade school, or another institution of higher learning. What they discovered was devastating. The schoolwork they completed did not match Michigan's educational standards. The classes they took did not count toward graduation requirements. These kids were understandably confused, saddened, and rightfully angry. Some simply dropped out of education altogether out of frustration. I was appalled when I learned of these issues, and I got to work. That's what we're here to do. We hear these issues, we hear about things like this, and then it's up to us to decide to do something about them. So over the next many months, I began working to create legislation to fix this issue, and what came out of that work is the legislation before you today. The lead bill in this package, House Bill 4676, amends the Foster Care and Adoption Services Act to create the requirement that foster care facilities provide education, and that the education must correspond to the Michigan Merit Curriculum Standards. This will ensure that the schoolwork that children in these facilities complete will count towards a high school diploma. House Bill 4677 requires the Department of Health and Human Services, in collaboration with the Michigan Department of Education, to provide a report to the legislature on how students in foster care perform academically. It will report how many students transfer schools, how many are suspended or expelled, how many suffer from chronic absenteeism, and so much more. This will ensure that we, as lawmakers, we'll know whether the system is working or if additional changes are necessary. Finally, House Bill 4678, supported by my good friend and colleague here, Representative Kimberly Edwards, requires the Department of Education to review the educational programming in foster care facilities to ensure that they are indeed meeting the Michigan Department of Education standards. Colleagues, children in the foster care system are among the most vulnerable residents in our state. They have gone through and continue to go through hardships that some of us can't possibly imagine. A high-quality education should be the difference between allowing these kids to continue to suffer and helping them to rise above their challenges and to live full, productive, and successful lives. The state of Michigan, as the designated caregiver and caretaker of these children, has an obligation to ensure that they get what they need to thrive, and that includes a good education. So now I will turn it over to my colleague, Representative Edwards, for her to add her own personal touch to this package of important legislation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the fellow committee members for being here today to hear the testimony on this bill. Our foster youth are some of the most vulnerable. They can easily be forgotten as we go about our day-to-day lives. And as a legislative body, it is easy to overlook our duty to them as we may focus on different demographics of our constituency. No matter what trials a child has gone through, to the end up in the Child Care Institute, believe me, it's always a traumatic one. I've had experience working in child welfare for over 15 years, so I know about those traumatic experiences. But I will say, with the glory of a traumatic experience is triumph. These are children who have lost loved ones, who have seen and experienced violence, who have firsthand encounters with drugs and other substances that, in an ideal world, children would never have faced. The Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the Office of Ombudsman, have put in a lot of work to track and document the care of these children, to work towards making them safe and secure as possible while they're in the child caring setting. It is now time to involve the Department of Education to ensure that not only these children are being cared for now, but also at the caliber of education that they receive are concurrent with what they need to be successful in the future. In the field, we hope that we're able to continue to give these children the tools they need to make them successful as adults, despite the trials they may face. What the state can do is partnership with the Department of Education is to make sure these kids have the best standard of education that can be provided to them through qualified professionals and through practices that meet the regulations set for all other education institutions in the state. Thank you for your time and being able to speak to my bill.
Thank you both for your testimony and again for bringing forward these bills. Colleagues, are there any questions for the bill sponsors? Minority Vice Chair Wozniak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rep. Young, with these bills, there are some areas of the state where the public school administration there is probably the same or worse than the foster care system for education. What do you see happening in those areas where the public school education rate of graduation is still under 40% and the kids aren't getting educated properly? Is that where I'm assuming that's not where you want to put the foster kids?
So first off, we have to address the fact that the foster care students have been overlooked in any of the systems as it relates to education. They've just been overlooked. And so right now, I have to be laser focused on this demographic. We know that in our state, we have educational challenges that many people are working to correct. But while we do that, I don't want these children left behind. I don't want them to not be a part of that conversation.
I think this is a good first step for that. But again, I think we have to look at the umbrella of where we're putting these children. We're in the bottom 10 states in the country for education, and our kids leave the state And that part of the problem is their families leave the state because of education. So hopefully we can improve that whole umbrella.
Absolutely. That's the big picture.
Thank you.
Representative Glanville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, the light wasn't working. And thank you for your testimony today, and thank you so much for bringing up these bills. You know, as a member of the Education Committee and having been an educator and across sectors as a career, I've actually had the opportunity to interact with some of our kids in the foster care system, and I've had some conversations lately with a few organizations, you know, on both sides of the state that have talked about this particular issue, among others. And I think it's just, I just want to commend you for hearing that news and getting to work on this. You know, I understand how, from a professional standpoint, how tricky it can be to transfer credits between schools and programs for our kiddos. That shouldn't be the case. And so for these kids who are putting in the time and effort on top of all the other trauma that they have, to then hear that their school credits and the effort they put into it didn't count, that just is a travesty to me. And so I am pleased to see this legislation coming forward, and that we will begin to recognize the work that these kids are doing and moving them forward, because clearly they have the skills. It's just simply, the box isn't getting checked for them.
Right. Opportunity.
And so yes, so appreciate that and look forward to further legislation to support this type of effort.
Thank you so much, Representative. One of the things that, working with the young people on this, the diploma, when we think about a diploma, that's like a rite of passage. So they're already dealing with the stress of turning 18 and like, okay, aging out of the system. So at minimum, can we be certain that they're gonna get a diploma? And then I've heard that some institutions are like just pushing them into GED. Well, that's all you need is just to get that. But did you just push your child into a GED system? Why can't we look at our foster care youth as our own? They should be able to get the same type of treatment as Darius and David, my two sons, got. And so that's why we are really strong advocates for this type of legislation.
That's true.
Representative Fox.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Young and Mrs. Edwards. Appreciate your work on this. Just a couple of questions. In relation to 4677, and it's recommending or requires the issue of a report. I'm just wondering, is that report an annual thing, or how often is that done?
Yes, sir. So I want it to be annual. We're gonna clear that up because it's not real clear in the legislation currently. That'll be an amendment for it to be annual.
Okay. And then my second question is I guess it came out of the fiscal impact analysis a little bit, is those CCIs, those child caring institutions. How many of those currently, are they all living up to MDE standards?
Yeah, that's why we're here today.
Oh, okay.
So when you say, are they, no.
Okay.
But that's what we're working on.
Okay, that's the purpose of this. Okay.
sir.
Yeah, because that seems to be, that's the foundation.
Correct.
So, thank you very much. I appreciate what you're working on here.
Thank you, sir.
Just a kind reminder to our colleagues to please address one another by our elected titles. Thank you. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oops, I better scooch over so you can hear me. Thank you for all your care and compassion for the foster care kids in Michigan, and I totally agree that we need to look out for everybody, and especially those that need maybe a little bit more nurture, care, and oversight. I just need some clarification. Who is not meeting the Michigan merit curriculum standards? Is it a school? Where does that break down?
So within the child caring institutions, currently within the child caring institutions, they are supposed to provide education, but it doesn't spell out that it has to be the Michigan merit education. And so that's what leads to a diploma. So kids are going, and you'll hear testimony later, they'll tell you, I went to school. I did homework, I did these things, but only to discover that it didn't amount to a diploma. And that's that hole that we're working to fix. There's no reason for children to go to school and to think they're gonna get a diploma. The one thing they know they can count on when they turn 18, because their future is really questionable. We're in a system about to age out, and then we're not able to provide that for them. We wanna be certain that they get that opportunity.
So are there schools that are denying them diplomas?
No, they have to meet the certain curriculum. They have to get the required standards. And if they're going to school, because this is part of the issue, keeping up with the transcripts for our kids, that's part of the issue as well. Sometimes we have our students, they're telling us that, look, I know I took this class before, I know I took Algebra 2 before, but they're making me take it again. I'm sure I passed it, but they're making me take it again. So then they're finding that they're not even getting the number of credits that they need to get their diploma. So this is designed to be certain that we're all on the same page. What is it you need to work towards your diploma? And then we're here to help you meet those requirements. That's what we're doing.
And so these students don't have parent advocates, is that right?
Well, they're in foster care. So they have those parent advocates, and some are, doing the best that they can. I'll put it like that. Some are doing the best that they can. And some believe that when they send their children off and when they're taking these classes with those, they believe they're getting what they need. And even those parents are shocked to learn, oh my goodness, what? You didn't meet the requirement? So we are wanting to fix fix that gap, to be certain that everyone is on the same page and that these children are getting the education that they need that will lead them to a high school diploma.
Last question. Do you see any correlation with special ed programs where that it's in, I've heard this recently in my district, that some of the special ed programs are where the kids are getting denied, whether if they're in foster care or not, they're getting denied the diploma.
I haven't
Also.
heard that, so we'll have to talk about that offline.
Thank you, Representative Johnson. I do have a question for the bill sponsors, and I think it ties into the question earlier in terms of parent advocates. I don't have the stats in front of me, and perhaps if you have others giving testimony, they could speak to it if it's not at your fingertips. But I have worked with a lot of foster youth in my district up in northern Michigan, and I know in many cases they are going through multiple foster care situations over the course of their childhood and teen years, sometimes 20 or more homes. Is that your understanding as well, that many times our foster youth, they don't have a consistent parental adult figure to help them navigate these things?
That is correct.
I think that's correct, but the issue is not the parent advocacy, because they do have foster parents. It's the fact that the issue of the unknown. You may take an English 101 class and think that's worth 2 credits, which is the 2 credits that you need, and it turns out it may be just a half of a credit. So it doesn't really amount to what you need, but that credit should have been provided for that school if I'm breaking it down enough for you. So if you take English 101 at the CSI, it should be the same credit as English at a DPS school.
Thank you, Representative Edwards. And Representative Glanville.
Thank you. Just to kind of further clarify this point, as I understand it, when kids enter into foster care, they might be changing their school district, or their access to education might move from a district to maybe an online school or something along those lines. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So when we talk about this, it's not so much that the education that they're getting is lower quality. It's that the credits for the course they're taking don't count because they're bouncing potentially from system to system. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So as you said in your example, like they take Algebra 2, but there is no central sort of agency that's checking off that they took Algebra 2. So those credits just sort of get lost in the system. And when they go back to their next school district, there's no record that they took that, like no official record. That's correct?
That is correct.
And
That's
so
part of
this
the big
bill,
challenge.
this package of bills will set up the system by which that accreditation, that central system exists to recognize that they took those credits and to track their transcript so that when they return, whatever school they go to, that credit exists for them now.
That's what we're working towards.
Okay,
yes.
got it. Thank you.
And thank you.
Seeing no further questions, the committee will go at ease.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oops.
The Committee on Families, Children, and Seniors will now come back to order. And with that, we are going to hear testimony from the Michigan Department of Education. We have with us Michelle Williams. Michelle, if you could come forward. Michelle Williams, Special Populations Unit Manager, and Dr. Delsa Chapman, Deputy Superintendent of the Division for Education, Student and School Supports. Thank you, ladies, for joining us on today. Be certain to press your red button. You've been here before, you know how it goes. Thank you so much.
Chairwoman Young and committee members, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to testify during this hearing. It is a distinct honor and privilege to be here today. I am Dr. Delsa Chapman, the Deputy Superintendent for the Division of Educator, Student, and Staff Supports. That's a long title, so the nickname is DESS, D-E-S-S-S. We are very happy to be here with you. And with me today is Michelle Williams, who is the unit manager for the Special Populations Unit within the Michigan Department of Education. In Michigan, there are approximately 10,000 youth currently in the foster care system, which includes those placed in child caring institutions. The data and personal stories shared by current and former foster youth demonstrate that our foster youth have suffered significant negative educational outcomes compared to those who have not experienced foster care. These youth are facing numerous systemic barriers that result in lower academic achievement and are graduating at a rate of 41% compared to a statewide average overall for all students of 81%, which includes foster youth. This is a 40% percentage point difference and a gap that has persisted for at least 5 years since it was first monitored under the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. It is important to note that in Michigan, foster youth graduate at the lowest rate of all student groups monitored under that act. The ramifications of failing to graduate from high school are well established and have lifelong consequences. The educational systems for youth in congregate foster care, and specifically the academic services provided within many child caring institutions, or CCIs, have not aligned in a way that has been transparent or led to the necessary and expected academic achievement. The absence of credit-bearing courses in some of these institutions undermines the ability to graduate, let alone to do so in 4 years, as does the difficulty to transfer credits across those institutions that provide them. These barriers continue to adversely affect thousands of students each year and countless Michigan youth over time. Last summer, national media coverage highlighted the stories of current and former Michigan foster youth who shared their disappointment and feelings of having been misled regarding their educational programming while placed in child caring institutions. These youth shared their belief that the schoolwork they completed would transfer and be counted as credits towards a high school diploma. However, that was not their experience. As our team listens to their experiences, youth tell us of the profound discouragement and lack of options available to them upon transitioning out of the educational programs offered at child caring institutions. They tell us of the devastating life impacts, including homelessness, unemployment, lack of access to attaining a driver's license, and limited to no access to post-secondary opportunities. The team at the Michigan Department of Education recognizes that we must be part of improving the educational programming within CCIs, alongside the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, which is statutorily responsible for these institutions. Together, these agencies can help drive efforts to systematically change the educational outcomes for youth who are involved in residential placements. It is important to note that though we have worked with DHHS in the development of these ideas, they are still reviewing the language as currently written in these bills. We look forward to working with them and the sponsors moving forward to make sure these bills are as strong as possible. These bills lay a framework for that collaboration. In particular, this bill package highlights 4 very important points. Number 1, clarifies expectations of educational programs for youth in foster care by prioritizing the pathway to graduation with a Michigan Merit Curriculum high school diploma. Secondly, ensures youth in foster care have the ability to access and receive educational records to the same extent as all students who are not in foster care. Additionally, they codify the review of educational programming in child caring institutions. And finally, expands data collection, monitoring, and analysis of the educational outcomes for youth experiencing foster care. This bill package will increase programming transparency and ensure the adequacy of educational programming for children and youth engaged in the foster care system. This work moves Michigan forward in building a stronger, more cohesive system to support these youth who have been denied a voice and a path for far too long. Thank you.
Okay, I was like, did you want to add? You didn't want to? All right, thank you so much for your testimony. Do we have questions? Representative Thompson?
Good morning. Thank you for your testimony. When you reference residential placement centers, child caring institutions, and the Michigan Merit Curriculum, do these residential placement facilities include the juvenile justice system? Or if a child is a ward of the state versus being in foster care, would those children that are wards of the state that would be in the juvenile justice system at JDF or other facilities, would they also be granted the opportunity for the programming and the education at those facilities, give the children the same Michigan Merit Curriculum that public schools give? And then child caring institutions, can you elaborate a little bit more on that? And then would these children be using any type of online school, or do these foster children that live with families, do they go to or attend charter schools? And would they also follow that same Michigan Merit Curriculum pattern?
Thank you, Representative Thompson, for those questions. In terms of the very first question that you asked around the juvenile students within that system, all of those students that you referenced in your questions are a part of what we deem at the Michigan Department of Education as special populations. And so there are definitely expectations that they are able to have access to the same curriculum and the same opportunities as our students that are enrolled and attending traditional public schools. Ms. Williams will add specifically clarification specifically to those students that are within the juvenile system and or wards of the state. Michelle?
Thank you. several layers of questioning in
I
there.
understand.
So let me know if I've missed anything,
Yes, thank
please.
you very much.
So as Dr. Chapman noted, this particular bill package hones in on the child caring institutions, which is inclusive of any institution that has that licensing from DHHS. I'll pause there because some of the specifics around that are really DHHS lens and not MDE lens. And so just wanting to make sure that I stay in that particular lane. But in terms of that cohesion and that collaboration that we're having across agencies, this bill package really moves us forward in giving us some of the requirements to elevate what that programming currently looks like. In terms of whether it would be online versus charter school, a lot of that is going to go to what education system is providing the support, and in particular, you were asking about juvenile justice. Part of that will also depend on access to students. So you're going to see a variety of models still within the outcomes of how that all is set up. But in terms of making sure that the onus is on the Michigan Merit Curriculum, this legislation would do that.
So with that,
Does that answer?
it does.
Okay,
it
thank
does.
you.
But now, does that mean that if this is kind of like the stepping stone and we're addressing it for foster children, then does that mean that once we get a hold on that, then maybe we need to start looking into how this affects the special population of children that are wards of the state?
As special populations manager, yes.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
There is trickle effect.
So legislation
and
may
more
need
to
to be
do.
introduced as well?
Yes,
You might want to say, would you say that?
I would say yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Representative Glanville, and just a reminder, we're just getting started, right?
Yes, yes, Rep. Young.
These three bills are just the tip of the iceberg. We're just getting started, so thank you all. Representative Glanville.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, again, from my personal experience working in my local public schools as the Director of Educational Technology, we were contracted by the county corrections to do that, to bring that educational programming to those students. So from my experience, special populations do receive traditional, if you will, public school education. In this case, it was, computers, so it was the same online credit programming that the kids in the local public school district received. So, like I said, just from my experience, I am confident that is a part of the programming, and maybe we need to shore it up in some places, but it certainly exists. So I just wanted to add that.
There being no additional questions, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent. Thank you all so much for your testimony. Next, we will hear from a fierce advocate. If you've ever met this lady, you know not to mess with these foster care children. And that would be Saba Gabri, if you would come up with Park West Foundation. She's the program director. Joining her are some of Park West Foundation's youth leaders called the Effie Tech, Empowering Foster Youth Through Technology. All right, so okay, all right. So, okay, very good. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. Is this going to be you two?
We will also have Raymond Miller and after Chris.
Okay, all right, very good, very good. All righty then. Well, thank you all for here. Chris, what's your last name, Chris? Christian Randall. Okay, that's Christian Randall. Welcome. Feel free. The floor is yours.
We did now. So, Christian, the youngest at 18, he will be speaking first, and then we will go with the college students in the back. So we are excited to be here. A lot of the news stories came out as a result of the young people wanting better. We are based in Southfield, Michigan. The idea of listening to youth started from Albert and Missy Scallion, who are the founders of first Park West Gallery in Southfield. And in 2005, listening to youth that idea went into direct service just by saying we could do more. Because the young people open up the doors to something more deeper in terms of what foster care means and what young people are going through. So listening to youth became the way that we guide everything that we do, from direct service to funding to basically every idea that we do. So education, by the way, was the first thing that we focused on. We couldn't figure out a lot of things, so we kept learning from them. We're still learning from them. But eventually, we also were being told, hey, don't listen to the youth. When they tell you they're in 9th grade or 10th grade, don't listen to the foster youth. Make sure you pull up their records because they don't know what grades they are in. And we didn't know why we don't listen to them when our whole idea was based on listening to them. So fast forward to 2 years ago, Christian was one of the people who was very excited about going to college, and we found out he wasn't a junior like he thought he was. You'll get into his story a little bit more. So the question that we asked different at that time was, instead of saying, how are they doing well, to say, are they actually going to a real school? So the reason why we are also so excited about these bills that are being proposed, it's going to help us address these root causes of what is causing this. So we're listening to the young people, and we found out the residential placement contract itself allows education to be defined as any activity that is educational or vocational. So they could do anything, and they could be told you're doing good in school. So the Michigan Merit Curriculum is not listed at all in the education portion of the residential placement contract, and that's for both foster youth and juvenile, or any population that comes into those CCIs, basically. So the young people have been coming to Lansing and meeting some of the legislators for different things. The pandemic funding was one of them. We love what you've done with Foster and Future Scholarship for the post-secondary, but then how do we make it to the post-secondary if we are not educating foster youth? There are issues with public schools, but that's what we are dreaming of, because there is a standard of what school is, like what you actually do in terms of making friends, connecting to the community that we call school, being able to play football from 9th to 12th grade, or to be able to do the whole middle school, to be able to have memories of prom or school dances or sports, to be a real kid in a real school before we can even work together to improve some things. So this is the beginning for us of asking and not fighting to have access first to basic educational opportunities. We are currently the lowest performing population in terms of foster youth, 40% versus 80% for the normal population, and the young people will get into even more statistics. The foster youth population is performing at 16% for math. That's the only population that is at 16% passing or even exceeding. But those youth that are placed in the community, they're valedictorians. They're doing so well because they are with foster parents. The issue that one person raised about parents, we are also fighting to ensure the legal parent for education that's court appointed is affirmed. And again, this bill is going to lead us to those things, because the system is not working to let biological parents know, parents with poverty and different backgrounds know that they still retain those educational rights and can be a part of the decision-making team. So we're hoping a lot of what the youth came up with is going to help us get there. We definitely want to thank also the Michigan Department of Education, also the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, because they sat down with youth and came up with how do we make these voices of young people into laws and into policies. So the department director himself, Director Demetrius Starling, met with these youth, same as the superintendent of Department of Education, Superintendent Michael Rice met with the youth. Also, the Board of Education, the Michigan State Board of Education, actually worked with the two departments to actually work on a resolution that was also adopted by other groups, which really is making us feel like the village is coming together for the children. Congresswoman Haley Stevens actually had it passed in her district. She took it and she was the first to adopt it there after the resolution was issued. And we were even more impressed when the co-vice president of the Michigan State Board of Education, Tiffany Tilly, was able to allow us to have the opportunity to speak to the different caucuses after the entire Democratic convention adopted the resolution, and we would love to have the Republican also convention adopted, hopefully the entire ask. So with that, I didn't even mean to speak today, but we had to definitely allow myself to be a part of what the young people are championing. So without further ado, go ahead, Chris.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christian Randall. I am the Director of Youth Advocacy at FY Tech. What FY Tech stands for is Empowering Foster Youth Through Technology. So it's ran by youth who have expertise at foster care. So they're with a heavy supporter being Park West Foundation. So I entered foster care in Michigan at the age of 12 years old. I was placed in a foster home with a single father, and he had an 11-year-old boy who was going to regular public schools. So for the whole year while I was there, I was not enrolled in school at all. So I wasn't enrolled into a school until I went to residential, my first residential placement. When I moved to residential schooling, I was put into classrooms with a bunch of different age groups and a bunch of other things going on. And sometimes I was on site. Sometimes I was able to go to a public school because from 13 years old to 17 years old, I moved from a bunch of different residential placements, lockdown facilities, or stuff like that, just because I did not have nowhere to be put. So not onto anything I did, but just because I didn't have nowhere else to go. So I followed directions from workers and staff, just telling me, go to school. So I'm going to school, following directions, doing everything I need to do to get my education, just for when I leave residential and I leave the on-site schooling programs just to go into a public school. That's when I found out all of my transcripts was missing. All of my credits was missing. So that's just meaning from all of this time and all of this work that I put into doing high school, all of it meant nothing. So it was extremely hard for me, just the feeling of disappointment, and I felt like a failure myself over something that had nothing to do with me. I wanted to quit. I wanted to say, it's time for me to go to my next life thing. If school is not going to be the one for me, I need to figure out what I'm doing next. So I was ready to drop out and just quit on school, find my next path. If I did not have the super strong team of people behind me that I have, like including Miss Saba, edging me to stay in school, I wouldn't have went back to school because I had to restart everything. Everything was gone. It was like I haven't been in school. So it hurts me the most because I had a super strong built team to keep me into school. But I know a bunch of friends that I've met in foster care, a bunch of other youth that I've met in foster care who does not have that huge team that's going to motivate them and push them into staying in school. So without my team, I wouldn't have went to school. So just imagine what they're going through, having to figure out that every single thing in school that they did meant nothing and had to restart. So that's the last thing I needed to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
And he also serves as the youth advocate. He has helped many other kids who dropped out to re-enroll in school, and he's also working on his high school, so he did not drop out. For
No,
the
I'm
record.
still in
Right.
school.
Yes. And we will have
Thank you,
Raymond
Chris.
Miller. Thank you so much, Chris. And we will have Raymond Miller also, who's had residential placement, and he is currently at Western Michigan University in spite of what he's been through. And he will also share his story with us. About 70% of young people want to go to college, but only 10% do.
Thank you for joining us today, Raymond.
Glad to be here. I just go ahead. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Honorable members. My name is Raymond Miller. I serve as Director Outreach of Empowering Youth Through Technology, which is supported by the Parkwest Foundation. Sabo right here. I'm here to support the Foster Care and Adoption Act, which was introduced by Representative Stephanie Young and co-sponsor of many of you here today. I will be telling you a little bit about my story and why I feel this bill is crucial to be passed. I am still impacted by my childhood experience and residential placements. When I was taken into foster care at the age of 6, I was adopted at the age of 9 through my brother's biological parents. I felt like I didn't have an emotional connection with them, so I kept running away all the way to the age of 14. After that, I ran away for good, and I went to my biological mother. With being there, I was there for about a little bit over a year and a half, and I was able to make a connection with my mother, my biological sister, and my grandmother within that year. I also attended Roseville Public Middle School with great, outstanding grades. I was a 3.0 student. So with being there, like I said, I was able to make a strong connection with them. And a little bit after my 15th birthday, I found out that it was a warrant out for me, and I was taken into residential placement. And with being there, I was disconnected from the whole world. I had no connection with none of my family members for about roughly 3 months. And being there, they told me the only people I could talk to was the adoptive parents, which, mind you, have nothing to do with me. They didn't want to do nothing with me. So basically, I was just stranded. I didn't have nobody to talk to for 3 months. Realizing that, also was in Saginaw, so it was far from home. So I had no idea where I was at. Realizing that, I just AWOL'd basically almost every other day to the point where they kicked me out of the place and they sent me to another residential, which this residential was called Wolverine Human Services, which luckily for me, it was a familiar area, and my biological father lived not too far from it. So what I did, I ran away, and I was able to reach him. And my sister, who's a big advocate for me, I called her. She studied at Michigan Tech University. She studied aerospace engineering. So I was able to reach out to her. She's a big advocate for me. She told me to go back. She helped me get out the right way, the legal way. So I took her advice. I went back to the placement. She later came there the next day. They told her that due to my adoption and stuff like that, she would have to wait till the adoption is terminated before I can even start a process of leaving. And also, she didn't even have no say-so in my education with being in the placement. So as time went by being in the placement, she did tell me to do school. So that's what I focused on, besides being in placement. I noticed that all the kids was either in various age ranges, and we was learning stuff that I already knew, your timetables, which I took this in 5th grade. So, like I said, they end up telling me, so I told them, I addressed it to them, and they told me that I would have to take an assessment to go to public school, which I fought for that. And then every time I said, well, can I take the assessment, they kind of just never even adjusted. So they told me something, and then they wouldn't even let me take the assessment, which just didn't make any sense. So after that, I finally was released from placement, roughly maybe 11 months later. And I was released to my, after the adoptive parents their rights finally got terminated because they never showed up to any of the court dates. They finally decided to terminate it. And I was also telling them I didn't want to go there, so they finally decided to listen to me. I was released to my auntie house, who lives in Detroit. I went there. Around this time, I met Saba. I'm glad I did. This was around 2019. I went to a public school in my area, maybe 5 minutes of walking distance. They told me, so luckily I didn't come in the system too late in my childhood, so I had credits. So I had only enough credits to be considered a 10th grader, but with my age range, I was supposed to be an 11th grader. So luckily I did have a little bit of credits. They told me either I would have to start at the 10th grade again and graduate a year later than my actual graduation date, or I would have to go to an online school that's like approximately like 30 minutes away. So, knowing me, I took the harder route, because why not? So I went to the school that was 30 minutes away. I had to catch the bus, because no, I didn't have transportation. So I caught the bus in the snow, in the rain, any weather you can imagine. It's Michigan. But I went, and I finished. In 2021, I graduated, walked the stage, and now I'm currently at Western Michigan studying aviation management. It's my 3rd year. Looking forward to graduating and being one of that, 3 to 4% of foster youth.
Yes.
Looking forward to being that. And I'm here because I feel like this bill is definitely crucial. Like my co-partner over there said, I know a lot of people personally who just dropped out. They done, you know. They don't have the strong supportive group like I had. Luckily I had my auntie who was able to get me eventually, you know, and I got out at still like a decent age at 16. And then, you know, and I was able to meet Saba, my mentor, great mentor. So luckily I did have that strong support team, and, you know, and I'm taking advantage of that. But so that's all for me.
Thank you so much, Raymond.
That's a lot.
He's continued, you know, he made those connections with the biological family, and he's lost his mother and grandmother through COVID since, but he was able to have that time prior to, right. So, yes. So, thank you, Raymond.
Yeah, your testimony is powerful. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you.
And our last person is Shay, Ovar Shay Graywoods. We call her Shay for short. Mm-hmm. And she is actually a graduate of Wayne State University from the School of Social Work, and working on graduate school currently. And we have many others that have done well, that have been taking advantage of the Fostering Future Scholarship, which is $3,000, which meets the gap in foster care when young people can't go for breaks, you know, summers and holidays, so they were able to use that fund. So thank you for that, because we do have some supports that have come, you know, through lawmakers, so we really do appreciate you guys for that.
Okay.
Welcome, welcome, Shay.
Hello. Good afternoon, honorable members. My name is Ovar Shay Graywoods, and I am the president of Park West Supported Youth Group, Empowering Foster Youth Through Technology, better known as FY Tech. It has been empowering and healing to use my lived expertise of foster care to advocate for reform in the well-being of youth in the foster care system. Our team has worked hard throughout the pandemic and beyond to connect foster youth to resources and opportunities to succeed in life and to ensure their voices are heard. I would like to briefly highlight my experience in foster care and elaborate the importance of the amendment of Section 8B under the Foster Care and Adoption Service Act, and why I support the passage of the House bills being proposed today. During my freshman year in high school while in foster care, I experienced a lot of hardship. Prior to my foster care case closing at 14, no one informed me of Shafee Youth and Transition YAT funds and closed case services in order to help me manage life when I transitioned out of care. All I knew for sure is once my case was over, that would be it. At the time, I advocated for myself and stated that I did not want my case to close because I knew that there were outstanding issues at home that my mother and father could not resolve. Unfortunately, despite my wishes, my case was closed and I was reunited with my family. As time progressed, my high school senior year was starting with extreme hardship as a new teen parent with limited resources. In spite of the challenges I faced at the time, I went out into the community to search for resources. I maintained above a 3.0 grade average and was enrolled in the Park West Foundation's college prep program class of 2016. That was until a CPS intervention that gave myself, my child, and 5 of my siblings 15 minutes to decide where we were going. We were taken away from our mother without preparation. A former foster parent of my younger brother opened up her home to us at the time. There were no arrangements or communication from CPS or DHS to help us with school, transportation to school, assist us with food, and all the other logistics that were needed to be okay. I was moved over an hour away from the east side of Detroit near East Point to 275 and 6 Mile. All of our calls and questions that to the CPS worker went unanswered. Everyone, including the foster parent, was confused on what was happening. We had no paperwork showing what happened to us. Everyone was afraid to make a mistake, so everyone kept calling that CPS worker on what to do next with no answer. My brother's foster parent struggled with food security, having 7 children in the home with no resources or finances, and even had her electricity shut off due to not being able to afford the dramatic increased bill due to the negligence of DHS. All of us were missing school, and all of our grades were failing, and all of our calls to DHS were not answered. My child's father used this CPS case as a reason to file for full custody of our child, which he was awarded temporarily, in spite of his complete absenteeism in our child's life before this moment. An attendance officer was about to arrest my mother for my brother's absenteeism, when my mother just decided to bring us all back to the home in the very same condition that we left the house. The worker never offered my mother any help or resources to resolve the problems that made our home unsuitable to live in, nor did anyone from my school district check on my well-being. Nothing changed. We found out later, due to Park West Foundation, my parents were my education rights holder the entire time, and what the worker did was considered a safety plan and removal. This quote-unquote safety plan actually created a lot of unsafe and uncertain conditions that were costly to all of us. I had to work extra hard to bring my grades back up and even had to enroll in credit recovery on top of my regular course load while being a full-time single parent. If my voice mattered when I explained that I did not want to go back home and that I wanted to stay in the foster care system, and if resources were put into place to prevent all of these issues, prior to my senior year of high school, I would have not endured the amount of trauma and stress that I had that year. Based on how the system treated my mother, I understood that it was up to me to help myself and my child. I could not afford to lose my child for what my parents or my community could not do for our security and well-being. With the help of the Park West Foundation, I made a quick decision to move out on my own at 16 to create a stability and better environment for my child. I was forced to be self-sufficient at the age of 16 with a child, when support should have been in place for me according to the law. And this is the everyday reality on the ground for many youth in care. The amount of disruptions I had in my personal life as it relates to transportation, housing, education, resource education in the system created a lot of insecurities and instability in my personal life. I am so thankful to be a part of the voices that it's taking to make sure that thousands of youth in care in the state of Michigan do not experience what I had to in order to get to this point. So prior to all of this community service and graduations and positive life changes that I got myself through, I went through a lot of stress, I went through a lot of anxiety, and I went through a lot of depression due to the system being broken. I had went through so much, but I had the willpower to change my life. Most youth do not have this willpower, and they become discouraged and they quit due to the system. I stand here now, proud today, being in the room with the representative that took my experience seriously and the experiences of other youth in care seriously. My concerns seriously, my life seriously, while creating House Bill 4676. This bill prioritizes empowering youth in the foster care system by encouraging the community to do the same. Each section of this bill package states that we must prioritize youth in care. The future depends on us now. We are the future. This bill highlights the most fundamental issues that youth currently receive and go through while in care. I support this House bill package because it makes me feel seen, it makes me feel heard, and it makes me feel valued. I would like to thank Representative Stephanie Young personally for making this happen for us. There should be nothing about us without us, and without her including us in every decision, listening to our experiences, and empathizing with us on a deeper level, we would not be here today. I encourage everyone in the room to be as actively involved with youth in care as Representative Stephanie Young has done with us. Using her power and her influence, we were able to use interprofessional collaboration and get things done. I also want to thank all of the representatives who have co-sponsored and supported this effort that says loud and clear that foster youth deserve the same educational opportunities as everyone else. We deserve that much. I, along with our team at the Park West Foundation, FY Tech, look forward to working alongside all of you to support the passage of these bills proposed in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'd like to do a little commercial for Foster and Future Scholarship. We will be back here on the 21st. We have a pizza party. You're all invited for that. So this is the 21st of this month. So I had to do that, and because you guys every dollar is helping Foster Youth Scholarship. Again, this is ending the 60% of victims that are found with traffickers whenever they look at human trafficking victims. This is ending almost 50% of the homeless who say they have spent some time in foster care. Education would allow us to plan, so that is not the outcome that we're looking at. So education is an investment that's going to change the trajectory of so many of our young people. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Don't go, just stay right there. Just give Saba some backup. No, thank you, thank you all for being here. We do have a few questions. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there, I'm asking you first, is there a DHHS representative here to address a question to or not?
Are they here? Oh, yeah.
May I address her?
I don't know.
Depends on what the question is.
I don't know.
Okay. You reserve the right to refuse it after you hear the question if you want. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all your testimonies. These stories really are powerful and appreciate it. How are parents handled? What does DHHS do when parents fail to take good care of the students they have, the children they have, including not enrolling them in school?
So that is a great question, by the way. I will plan to follow up with you on
Yeah,
that.
I was about to say, we can have a follow-up on that. Yes, ma'am.
And by the way, just to add to that question also, the courts appoint a surrogate. Sometimes it's the attorney. If a parent is not participating, they can automatically take that right from them and appoint either, like I said, the surrogate could be an attorney or someone identified by the family member. So definitely, they will lose that before they lose the rights for everything else as a parent. If they're not showing up, that could happen. It just needs to happen more often, because if it's discussed, if education becomes an issue, then that would become routine in terms of at every court hearing to see who the courts, who the legal parent is for education. That has to come up at every hearing.
Thank you. Representative Kofia?
This is less of a question, more just to say thank you to each of you for sharing your testimony. You said it, Shay. I kept thinking as I was listening to all three of you, nothing about us without us.
That's right.
It is incredibly important that your voices are centered in these conversations because, frankly, you have the lived experience and the expertise of where our systems are failing and where they can be better. And I want to thank Rep. Young and Rep. Edwards for also, and Saba for centering the voices of our foster youth, because they know what we need to do to live up to what they deserve as a state. So just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And your voices represent so many. We know that there are 10,000 that are in the system, but that doesn't capture how many more are going to be coming into the system. And so we know that there are areas that need to be improved. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, they're not there just not doing their job, right? MDE just hasn't turned a blind eye necessarily, but this is what we as legislators have been sent here to do, to look at those areas that need to be tweaked, to look at those areas where we found that there are gaps in services, particularly when it comes to our young people. There was that old saying, those are future. Y'all are right now. Right. We got to get it right now for you to have a successful future. So with that, again, we say thank you. I don't see any additional questions. You have any closing thoughts? Saba, you have 30 seconds. No, no. You got to put her on a timer.
I also thank the co-sponsor, Rep. Edwards, so thank you so much. And all of you also for your time. We really
thank you.
appreciate it.
All right, thank you all. You may return to your seats.
June 21st is the pizza party.
June 21st, the pizza party. Okay, have some veggie.
We'll be out there, so you
Veggie
can come see
pizza.
us.
All right, here we go. We do have a card not wishing to speak, but in support of, from Mark McWilliams, Disability Rights, Michigan. So we thank you for his support. Oh, there, so we don't have any absent members today. So now I need so there being no further business for the Family, Children's, and Senior Committee, we stand adjourned. Thank you all. Where is it?